The cold of that night seemed to pierce not only the body, but the soul. On the corner of a quiet street, an abandoned dog trembled, forgotten by the world. Each breath came out weak, like a prayer struggling to rise. He did not understand why he had been left there, only the weight of loneliness. Yet his eyes still searched beyond the darkness. Some pains make no sound, but they echo in heaven, and none of them go unnoticed by God. While the city slept, that small heart kept fighting. The wind cut like blades, and the silence confirmed the abandonment. But faith teaches us that God's silence is never absence. It is within silence that the sacred draws near. If stories like this strengthen your faith, follow this channel now. Here, every story is an invitation to faith, compassion, and hope. Nothing happens without heaven allowing it. Christian tradition reminds us that Mary, the loving mother, sees those who suffer. She watches over the forgotten, the small, the voiceless. Just as she witnessed her son's suffering, she sees every innocent pain. On that cold street, nothing escaped her maternal gaze. Even when the world turns away, heaven remains attentive. If this message touches your heart, follow the channel and stay with us. Here, faith is alive and present in every story. The dog closed his eyes at times, as if surrendering everything in silence. There were no words, only a quiet plea for mercy. Scripture teaches that God hears even prayers never spoken aloud. Every unseen tear is counted. Every suffering is known. Nothing is too small when it comes from sincere pain. This story is not only about an animal, it is about all who suffer in silence. Perhaps you have felt this way before, forgotten, rejected, trembling inside before life itself. That is why stories like this unite us in faith. They remind us that we are never truly alone. Before we continue, follow this channel and walk with us. Each video here is a prayer told through story. And this cold night still carries a greater purpose. The sky remained covered, as if guarding a sacred secret. The dog lay still, his strength slowly fading. Yet something invisible continued to sustain him. Faith teaches that when strength ends, grace begins. If these stories uplift your spirit, stay connected and follow the channel. Each message here reminds us of divine care. Nothing escapes heaven's gaze. Mary, in her silent tenderness, is refuge for the afflicted. Christian tradition calls her the mother of those who suffer. She leans toward forgotten pain with compassion, not with words, but with loving presence. Just as in Cana she perceived the need before it was spoken, she perceives every suffering before the cry, and she intercedes where human help fails.
The dog trembled, but he was not invisible to heaven. Every heartbeat was known by God. All creation groans, awaiting consolation and redemption. Even the smallest life belongs to God's plan. Faith reminds us that mercy reaches all creation. Nothing made by God is disposable. Everything has value in His eyes. Time seemed to slow in that moment. Between shallow breaths, there was a deep silence, not empty, but filled with meaning. The silence where God works unseen, where hope begins quietly. Pain remained, but it was no longer alone. Heaven was still watching. This story invites us to see beyond appearances, to recognize the sacred where many see only sadness. How often does divine love act without applause? How often does Mary care in secret? True faith recognizes subtle signs. It learns to trust even without answers, because God's love is never late. The night deepened like a silent trial. The cold persisted, but something shifted within the air, not visible to the eyes, but felt in the soul. Faith teaches that God moves first in the unseen. Before anything changes on earth, something moves in heaven. Mary remains where pain exists, unnoticed yet present. Her presence comforts without noise. The dog breathed with difficulty, yet he was not abandoned. All creation is sustained by divine love. No life exists outside God's care. Even when suffering feels unjust, it is never ignored. Mary gazes upon every fragile soul. She understands weakness and intercedes with tenderness. Where there is innocent pain, there is silent intercession.
Scripture reminds us that God is refuge for the small. He inclines himself toward the humble and defenseless. That fragile dog reflected so many forgotten lives, people who suffer quietly, waiting for a sign, a gesture, an answer, a presence. God sees what the world discards, and he acts in his perfect time. In that deep silence, hope began to breathe. There was no visible change yet, only trust. True faith is born this way, when everything seems still, yet the heart believes. Mary teaches us to trust without understanding. She kept all things in her heart, and so we are called to trust. Maybe this story mirrors your own journey. Moments when your soul felt cold, days when no answer seemed to come. Yet faith sustains us in these valleys. It reminds us that heaven never sleeps, that Mary never abandons her children, and that divine love remains active. The wind slowly softened, as if honoring the moment. The night remained cold, but less hostile. Sometimes the environment changes before the story does. Faith recognizes these subtle movements of heaven. Nothing happens by chance when God is near. Mary continues her loving vigil. Her intercession never rests. The dog opened his eyes slowly. There was exhaustion, but something else as well. Not physical strength, but quiet trust. The same trust Mary held at the foot of the cross. When everything seemed lost, she remained. So did heaven in that moment. Pain remained, but it was not alone. Christian tradition teaches that God uses the simple. He acts through unexpected means. The small, the fragile, the forgotten become vessels. Suffering is not the end of the story. It may be the beginning of something greater. Mary understands this mystery deeply. She trusts even without seeing the outcome. On that empty street, something was being prepared. There were no clear signs yet, only hope. True hope does not depend on proof. It is born from trust in God's faithfulness. Mary teaches this silent faith, faith that waits, trusts, and remains, even when time feels long. This story invites us to remain as well, to not give up in moments of inner cold, to believe heaven is working as we wait. Not everything is revealed immediately, but faith sustains the journey. Mary walks with us at every step, and divine love continues to act. When dawn finally arrived, the night had lost its power. Light touched the street like a quiet blessing. The dog was still there, but something had changed completely, not only around him, but within. Faith teaches that light always overcomes darkness. After the longest night, morning comes, and with it, the certainty that God never abandons. Nothing in this story was by chance. Every moment of pain was seen. Every silence was heard. Mary, the loving mother, remained from beginning to end. She never turns away from suffering. Her intercession is constant, even unseen. Heaven never lost sight of him. This story is not only about an abandoned dog. It speaks of everyone who has felt forgotten, of those who endured cold in the soul.
Faith reminds us that God sees beyond appearances, that Mary receives even unspoken prayers. Nothing is too small for divine love. Nothing escapes heaven's care. Suffering does not have the final word. It never does. The final word always belongs to God, and where there is faith, there is meaning. Mary teaches us to trust divine timing, to wait with open hearts, and to believe even without understanding. May this story strengthen your faith today. May it remind you to remain steadfast, to trust when everything feels silent, to believe heaven is watching your life. Mary walks beside you even now, and God continues writing your story, always with love, care, and purpose.